Do you know Salisbury Park in Isahaya City? It's about a 30-minute walk from Isahaya Station. The park is located on a small hill just northeast along the Honmyo River. It's a quiet place where few people stop by. Today, I would like to share with you a very sad and painful story that took place there near the end of the Pacific War. My name is SHIMIZU Takio. I was born in 1927 and was 18 years old at the time. I belonged to the Civil Defense Corps and was also a member of the Youth Association in Honmyo. On August 9th, 1945, I was working in a rice field atop a hill in Honmyo with my parents since early morning. It was an incredibly hot day. Just before 11 o'clock, we decided, let's head home a little early. We loaded some fodder onto the back of our cow and began making our way back home. And that's when it happened. A blinding flash of light streaked across the sky, and about 20 to 30 seconds later, a deafening explosion shook the air, a sound more powerful than anything I had ever heard. What in the world was that? Snapping back to my senses, I looked around. The cows, frightened, were kicking up dust and running in all directions. "Over there! Look!" someone shouted. I turned toward the southwest sky. A massive mushroom cloud was spreading out before us. I hurried home, then rushed to the youth group's outpost. When I arrived, the place was in an uproar. "They say a brand new kind of bomb just dropped on Nagasaki." An order was issued. Civil defense members and the Women's Association are to assemble at Isahaya Station at 3:30 p.m. I rushed home, changed into my uniform, and without knowing anything about the situation, arrived in front of Isahaya Station just 20 minutes later. "Help me! Please, give me water!" Desperate cries filled the air. The station rotary was overflowing with people on the brink of death, suffering from severe injuries. With burned throats, they forced out their voices in agony. It was without a doubt a living hell. People with their entire bodies burned and blistered. People whose skin hung in shreds from ruptured blisters. People pierced all over with shards of glass, large and small. People with their clothes nearly torn away, dark, clotted blood oozing from their wounds. Groans and moans echoed endlessly from every direction. Right in front of me, a woman was staggering forward in a daze, her hand tightly holding that of a little girl, maybe 3 or 4 years old. Both of their hair was frizzled and singed from the heat. From their charred, tattered clothes, swollen red skin hung down as if it had melted. The little girl looked up at the woman with deep concern in her eyes. No one called out to them. Where were they going? It's a scene burned into my memory. One I can never forget. Many bodies had been laid out in the square in front of the station. Even those who had still been alive when they boarded the train had passed away by the time they reached Isahaya. I had never seen such severely burned, dark red bodies before. I was frozen in shock, unable to move. What are you standing around for? Hurry up, move them! Someone shouted at me angrily. We had been ordered to carry the bodies. We placed them on wooden door panels gathered from nearby homes and carried them in teams of 4. We also used pull carts and hand carts. The first place we carried the bodies to was Shoji Temple in Tenmonmachi, not far from the station. But the number of bodies kept increasing, and the temple quickly filled up. After that, we brought them to the morgue at the Naval Hospital, now Isahaya General Hospital, but after just 3 trips, even that was full. Many of the wounded who had managed to board the train at Michino Station with everything they had were sent on to places like Omura and Kawatana or to Nagata and Konagai. Among the bodies we brought to the morgue, I noticed one man wearing a new fundoshi, or traditional loincloth, and I immediately knew he must have been a member of the military. Civilians were left in whatever they had on. It really struck me how deep the discrimination ran. During the war, the older generation always told us, because our soldiers are risking their lives on the front lines, we are safe. We owe everything to them. But in my heart, I couldn't help thinking, we're fighting too, every single day. By the time we finished carrying the bodies to the Naval Hospital, the sun had already begun to set. After that, we were ordered to transport the remains to the crematorium on the opposite side of the river. We asked for permission to cross the Navy Bridge, now Kamiyudo Bridge, which was the fastest route to get there. But we were harshly refused. No, the bridge was just completed and hasn't even had its official opening. We won't allow the dead to be the first to cross. With no other choice, we took a longer route and crossed the Shimen Bridge to reach the crematorium. I don't know how many trips we made back and forth. By the time night fell, we had finally finished transporting the bodies for the day. The crematorium was already filled to capacity. Then came the next order. Report to the crematorium tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Starting the day after the atomic bombing, on August 10th, we began digging pits in the fields around the crematorium to lay out and cremate the bodies. There were simply too many being brought in. The crematorium alone couldn't keep up. That day, we dug 2 pits, each able to cremate 10 people, and cremated 20 in total. The next day, we dug 2 more and cremated 40. On some days, the number rose to as many as 60. Even now, there are memories so painful, I wish I could forget. One of them is when I had to lift bodies with my bare hands and place them onto rush mats. When I grabbed a person's arm and pulled, the skin would slip right off. If I hesitated in shock, a soldier would shout at me, "Hold on tight!" I was doing everything I could just to keep going. I can never forget the feeling that remained in my hands. As I continued working barehanded, the peeled skin and flesh began to cling more and more to my hands. Even when I wanted to wash them, there was no water readily available. I picked mugwort leaves from the side of the road and scrubbed my hands with them, trying to wipe it off, only to immediately go back to carrying another body. Even the rice balls prepared by the Women's Association were no longer something I could bring myself to eat. With hands like mine, I couldn't even lift food to my mouth. Normally, I could eat 2 without any trouble, but this time I could barely manage half of 1. Working all day in the heat, doing unfamiliar and exhausting labor, my body and spirit were both at their limits. I'm sure everyone else felt the same. One day, the head of the Civil Defense Corps ordered me, "Go back to the outpost and boil some somen noodles." I rushed back and quickly boiled the noodles, then rinsed them in the water from the Homyo River, and carried them to the work site. That became our dinner for the night. Somehow, everyone managed to get a bit of it down. At the time, the water of the Homyo River was very clean. The cremations began each morning at 7:30 and continued until 8 at night, with only the shortest of breaks. We dug pits roughly 2 meters deep, 2 meters wide, and 10 meters long. At the bottom, we arranged old wooden beams in a crisscross pattern, then placed 10 bodies on top. Straw was laid over them, a small amount of kerosene was poured, and the fire was lit. This process began on August 10th and continued without pause until midday on the 15th. In the end, I believe we cremated close to 400 or even 500 people. At first, the work was terrifying and unbearably painful. But with so many bodies, my senses gradually grew numb. Before I knew it, I was carrying out the orders in silence, just going through the motions. Each morning, our first task was to gather the bones of those who had been cremated the day before. Since none of the bodies could be identified, we tried to preserve any clues that might help later. Things like a Mitsubishi emblem or a silver dentures. We took note of such items and placed them in small boxes. All the remains were collected and buried in the nearby fields. Once that was done, we would line up more old wood, place the next group of bodies on top, and begin another round of cremation. That routine repeated day after day. One day, a woman came to the crematorium saying, "I'm looking for my daughter." She had already searched the Naval Hospital, Shoji Temple, and other places before finally arriving at the crematorium. Among the boxes where we had stored identifying items, there was a small, charred scrap of cloth. Her daughter's name was faintly visible on it. The woman clutched that tiny piece of cloth to her chest with deep affection and collapsed in tears. "We finally found each other. It must have been so hot, burned by the bomb, and burned again here. Burned twice." She wept. She thanked us again and again before she left. There's a saying, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I believe with all my heart we must never live by that. Nuclear weapons must never be created. Just one bomb took the lives of over 100,000 people. That is the horror of the atomic bomb, the terror of radiation. If such weapons are ever used again, they will bring about the end of humanity. Because I saw it with my own eyes, I feel this more strongly than anyone. In the face of such destruction, human beings are powerless. and unbearably fragile. Many decades have passed since that day, but I've always carried one wish in my heart, a deep desire to somehow comfort and honor the souls of those who died in the atomic bombing. Through a meaningful connection, I came to know Mr. Takuo Mori and a group of second-generation atomic bomb survivors. As our relationship grew, I was given the opportunity to speak about my experience at Moriyama Higashi Elementary School in Isahaya City. That was when I made up my mind to entrust my long-held wish to these second-generation survivors. The wish I had carried for years, to build a memorial monument. I said to Mr. Mori, "There are things I can never forget. The charred bodies of a mother and child, the skin peeling from their flesh, the unrecognizable corpses lined up at the entrance to the crematorium. It was unbearably tragic. I'm convinced we must build a memorial and preserve this history for future generations." The second-generation survivors took my wish to heart. I want them, and all of you, to keep going strong. Please, carry on the voices of those who lived through the bombing. Share the cruelty and senselessness of the atomic bomb. I've told my children and grandchildren, because, above all else, I believe it is our duty to pass it on. We, the Nagasaki Atomic Bomb Victims Support Council, Second Generation Survivors Association, Isahaya Chapter, visited the cremation site Mr. Shimizu had told us about. He said it had since become Salisbury Park. But what we found there could hardly be called a park. The grounds were overgrown and neglected with thick weeds and trees covering the area. The deeper we went, the darker and more oppressive it became, so much so that it felt frightening just to set foot inside. We couldn't help but feel that if things were left this way, those who had died in such agony would never truly find peace. And so, in the fall of 2016, we began cleaning up the site. On the first day, Mr. Shimizu joined us for the cleanup. He said, "I want people to know about this little park. The war ended because so many lives were lost. Thanks to their sacrifice, we are able to live in this time of peace. I want people to understand that." Led by our first chairman, Mr. Takuo Mori, we began working toward the construction of a memorial monument. After overcoming numerous challenges, the project finally broke ground on March 15, 2020, the 75th year since the bombing. Male members of our group even helped with the land leveling themselves, working hard and sweating alongside the crew. And then, on July 26, about 5 months after construction began, thanks to the support of many people, the memorial monument that Mr. Shimizu had long dreamed of was finally completed. The sole dedication ceremony was held on August 8, 2020. With the mayor of Isahaya and many others in attendance, the ceremony was conducted with solemn reverence. But Mr. Shimizu was not there. Just 2 months after construction began, on May 15th, he passed away peacefully at the age of 93. The chanting of the priest from Myohonji Temple echoed throughout the park. We believe Mr. Shimizu, together with those who had been cremated on that very ground, listened quietly from their resting place. They're building the memorial monument at Salisbury Park now. These were the joyful words Mr. Shimizu spoke from his hospital bed, as later recalled by his daughter. On August 9th, 80 years ago, Kayoko Hayashi, who was 15 at the time, lost her life in the atomic bombing while working at Shirayama Elementary School, where she had been mobilized as a student laborer. In her memory, her mother, Tsue, planted a Some Yoshino cherry tree at Shirayama Elementary. Today, Kayoko's cherry trees have spread across Japan as a symbol of peace. 2 such Kayoko cherry trees were also planted here at Salisbury Park, one in 2021 and another in 2024. As we imagine the day when these trees bloom in full, we continue caring for the park, remembering Mr. Shimizu, Kayoko, and all those who lost their lives here. Amid these efforts, on October 11th, 2024, the Japan Confederation of Atomic and Hydrogen Bomb Sufferers Organizations, or Nihon Hidankyo, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. With that honor as encouragement, we are determined to continue walking the path of peace.
Mr. Shimizu, the cherry blossoms have bloomed beautifully, haven't they?
Yes, Kayoko. May the world always remain as calm and gentle as this.